Every Sunday without fail, you'd find John sitting on the old wooden bench near the main gate of the Sunshine Meadows retirement home. He'd arrived just as the morning sun began to warm the cobblestones, his eyes fixed on the long, winding road that led to the entrance. He wasn't waiting for just anyone. He was waiting for his son. The staff and residents of Sunshine Meadows all knew John's story. It was a ritual woven into the fabric of their community. At first, they would ask him, expecting someone special today, John, and he would smile, a hopeful, gentle smile that crinkled the corners of his kind blue eyes. "My boy's coming," he'd say. He promised. But as the Sundays turned into months, and the months into years, the questions faded. His son never came. The gate remained quiet, the road empty. Yet, John's hope never wavered. He would sit there, from morning until the shadows grew long in the late afternoon, a solitary figure of unwavering faith. Other residents would often join him, bringing him a cup of tea or a warm blanket when the air turned chilly. Mrs. Gable, a retired schoolteacher with a knack for storytelling, would sit beside him and talk about her travels. Mr. Henderson, a gruff old sailor, would share tales of the sea. They did it to keep him company, to gently distract him from the constant vigil. They were his family now, a community bound by shared stories and the quiet understanding of time. They'd watch as John would occasionally pull a worn, faded photograph from his wallet. It showed a young boy with a wide, toothy grin sitting on his father's shoulders. "That's him," John would say, his voice thick with pride. "Smartest kid you'll ever meet." Ola said he'd make something of himself. No one had the heart to tell him the truth. They all suspected that his son, a successful businessman in a distant city, had likely forgotten him. Or perhaps, worse, chose not to remember. They simply sat with him, sharing in his quiet, hopeful sorrow. John never seemed to notice their pity. His focus was singular, his belief absolute. "He's just busy," he'd explain to anyone who would listen. "But he'll come. A son always comes back for his father." One particular Sunday, the air was crisp, and the leaves were turning brilliant shades of orange and red. It was a beautiful autumn day, but the familiar ache of disappointment had already begun to settle in the hearts of those who watched John from the windows. The sun was starting its descent, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. It seemed like another day of waiting was about to end in the same quiet way. But then, something different happened. A sleek, dark car, unfamiliar to everyone, slowed down and turned into the driveway. It pulled to a stop, right in front of the gate. A young man, probably in his late 20s, stepped out. He was dressed in a sharp suit, but his face held a look of nervousness and uncertainty. He looked around, his eyes scanning the grounds until they landed on the old man sitting on the bench. The residents watching from the windows held their breath. Was this him? Was this the son John had been waiting for all these years? The man looked different from the boy in the photograph. But time changes people. The young man approached the bench slowly, almost hesitantly. John looked up, his expression a mixture of confusion and a flicker of his ever-present hope. "Can I help you, son?" John asked, his voice gentle. The young man took a deep breath. "Are you John Miller?" he asked, his own voice a little shaky. John nodded. "I am." The man fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a wallet, but instead of showing an ID, he produced a small, silver locket tarnished with age. He opened it and showed it to John. Inside was a tiny picture of a man John recognized instantly. It was a man named David, a friend from his old neighborhood, someone he hadn't seen in over 30 years. "My name is Leo," the young man said. "David was my father." John stared at him, bewildered. "David. I remember him. A good man. How is he?" Leo's expression softened with sadness. "He passed away a few months ago. But before he did, he told me a story. He told me about a day, many years ago, when he was in a terrible accident at the old construction site. He was trapped, and no one could get to him. The whole structure was about to collapse." John's eyes widened slightly, a distant memory surfacing. "I remember that day," he whispered. "It was a close call." "It was more than a close call," Leo continued, his voice filled with emotion. My father said everyone was running away, but one man ran towards the danger. One man pulled him out just seconds before everything came crashing down. That man saved his life. That man was you, John. John looked down at his hands, as if seeing them for the first time. He had almost forgotten. It was just something you did, helping a friend. Leo knelt down in front of John, his eyes welling up. My father never forgot what you did. He told me that because of you, he got to live his life. He got to get married, and he got to have a son. He got to have me. He said he owed his entire world to you. Before he passed, he made me promise I would find you and thank you. Leo paused, taking another shaky breath. I've been looking for you for months. When I found out you were here, I also heard about your son, about how you wait for him every Sunday. John's hopeful expression finally crumbled, replaced by a deep, profound sadness he had kept hidden for so long. Eluked? Hawaii. Toward the empty road. My father told me, Leo said, his voice now strong and clear, that if I ever found you, I should tell you that the life you saved created another, and that life would be indebted to you forever. John, your son might not be here, but a son is. Leo reached out and gently took John's hand. My father is gone, and you are here, waiting for a son who doesn't come. I can't replace your boy, but you gave me the gift of a father, even if you never knew it. I'd like to, if you'll let me. I'd like to be the son who visits you. I want to be the one who sits here with you on Sundays. Tears streamed down John's weathered face, but for the first time in years, they weren't tears of sorrow or lonely hope. They were tears of shock, of gratitude, of an overwhelming joy he thought he'd never feel again. He looked at the earnest young man kneeling before him. This gift from a past he had long forgotten. From the windows, the residents of Sunshine Meadows watched, their own eyes misty. They saw John wrap his arms around Leo in a tight embrace. They saw the end of the long wait. The sun had finally set. But for John, a new day was dawning. The following Sunday, he was on his bench as usual, but he wasn't alone. Leo was there, sitting beside him, sharing stories not of the sea or distant lands, but of a man named David, and a life that was saved, and a promise that was finally kept. The wait was over. John had a son again. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content that celebrates the goodness in humanity. See you next time.